Hey guys, we're going to be doing cursor-based pagination, which scales a little bit better when you have more rows in your database than offset-based pagination, which is what we currently have. Now right now we're accidentally seeing the very end of our list. This is actually the oldest messages at the bottom here, and let me show you guys that. So let me type latest message. So it looks like it works because it's right here, right? But that's only because we're doing subscriptions and putting it here. If I actually refresh, we'll notice latest message is actually nowhere to be found. And the reason for that is we are sorting by ascending. So we actually need to be sorting by descending for messages. So descending is actually going to give us the latest messages at the very top. So we just need to change that in our message resolver. So now when I refresh and I scroll to the very top, latest message is there. So now that we're doing pagination like this, we just need to reverse our list. So coming over to our message container, down here messages, we'd like to just reverse it, right? So there's a reverse function in JavaScript like so, but this won't work, and the reason for that is messages is immutable. So if we run this, it should throw a little warning. There we go, saying can assign read-only property 0 of the object, and that's because reverse tries to mutate. So all we need to do is do ... to create a new array. So this will create us a new array of messages. Alternatively, you could call messages.slice. Either one should work, so it's whatever you prefer. And now we see latest message at the bottom, and we'll say even later message, and now we see that pop to the very top. And that's because we're now reversing these guys, and if we come up to where we're doing, here is our subscription, and we are adding the new message to the end of the list when it should really be at the beginning of the list because it's the latest message. So we just need to change that as well. And now everything should be working properly. So even later message, hi, we see hi here. If I were to refresh this, we see hi stays here. And now we can load more and load more. And we notice how it's getting later if we look at the dates here, December 4th, and at the very bottom, December 6th. Okay, so now we're going in the right direction now. But our offset pagination works and is working fine. We just need to change the order of that. So now we're going to do cursor pagination. And how that works is if we come over here. So right now what we're saying is we're kind of keeping the position that we are in the list of messages, right, by saying offset. So if we say offset is equal to 45, that means we want to start in the list at position 45. And the reason why this is not as performant when you get lots of rows is because you have to start at your array at index 1, 2, and it'll go all the way up until, let's say, 1 million. So it has to scan all the way through that, which is not very good. So the idea with cursor-based pagination, instead of grabbing the index and offsetting, instead what you do is you say, I want the value. So you hold the value and you call that the cursor. So maybe the value is 483, and so you go to that position and you find all the elements after this value. So that's what we're going to be doing. So how this is going to work is we're going to get rid of our offset, and our value is created at. So the value we're going to sort by. So we're ordering these by their date, and so we're going to say we want to find all messages later than this particular message at this date. So here I'm going to say cursor. So we're going to get a cursor now. And so in my schema over here, instead of an offset, I'm going to say cursor, which is going to be a string. Now we're going to let this string be nullable. That way, because sometimes you don't want to pass a cursor in at the very first element. So here we're going to say const options, and we're going to put this in here. So our cursor is now going to be a date. and I'm just going to pass in the options here. So I want to conditionally add a where clause. I only want to add the where clause if we have a cursor. So that's why I'm breaking up the options, bringing it out here instead of putting it right there. So now I'm going to say if cursor, and if we have a cursor, I'm going to say options.where, and we're going to look at the created at is equal to, and we want to find all the messages after our cursor message basically. So we're going to say models dot, and we want to do less than. So we want to get the less than operator. And I don't know about you guys, but I've been getting kind of tired having to write out this whole thing where I do sequelize.op and so on. So I'm going to shorten this by coming into my index.models over here and just going to say models.op is equal to sequelize.op, just to make it a little bit faster for us to grab that. So this is in my models index where we're initializing this model. So now I can just say models.op.less than, and we're going to say our cursor. So what this is going to do is when we're given a date or a cursor, we're going to find all the elements that are after this cursor. So let's get our front end working with this. So instead of passing in down here an offset, we're going to pass in a cursor. Now at the beginning we don't need to pass in a cursor because we want to get the very latest messages no matter what. And then after that, and we need to change our query here. So instead of offset, we're going to say cursor, cursor, and this is now a string. And we'll come over here. And now in our fetch more. Now I don't know why I was doing this dot props, because we already are grabbing those items right here, and we can even get fetch more there. So now I can just shorten all this stuff. So fetch more, and we have the channel ID up there, and we have messages. Okay, but we're not doing it like that anymore. Instead we're going to do cursor, and here I'm going to say I want to get the last element in my list, so that's going to be messages.length.-1. So I'm getting its value, so I want to get dot created at. So here I'm getting the date of the last message. So come over here. So the last date is going to be Tuesday, December 5th, and then at this time. And then I want to find all the messages that are after this time. So we're going to pass that in. It's going to come over here to our resolver, and it's going to say we gave it a cursor at that time. Find all the messages we're created at is even less than that time. Okay, so let's see this in action. Click load more, and click load more and more, and we can just keep loading, and we should see these are even older. We see this is December 4th now, so perfect. So that is how you do cursor-based pagination. Now out of the box, I don't believe this is faster, what we have right now. What makes this faster is if you can index this column, the one that we are doing this where column on. So we need to add an index to created at, and that will actually give us that performance that will be faster than offset based pagination. So in our model over here, in our message, we just want to add a index. So in Sequelize, it's super easy to add an index. So in the object that you're defining, you just add an option array at the end, or yeah, an option object I mean, and then we're just going to copy this. You create an indexes in there. So that's the association. Here's our model that we're defining. We're going to create a option at the end here, paste in our index. And we're only going to add one index to this, and we're going to say created at. Now our index is not unique because you could have two messages that could be at the very same time, right? And I think we see that when I was typing really fast, some of them were at the same time. Now they might be at different like milliseconds, for example, but at the same second at least. you can see there's a couple of them at the same second. Okay, so normally you would drop the database so this index gets applied. I'm not going to worry about it because it's the same thing. It's going to work exactly the same way as it's working over here. It's just going to perform faster and scale better. Okay, so that is how you do cursor-based pagination, and this is what I would recommend for the most cases, but you saw offset can be a little simpler. And it's also important to make sure we're already ordering by this column, but you need to order by the column that you are your cursor is. So our cursor is a date, which is created at, so you also need to order by that as well. Okay, cool. And there was one more thing I wanted to do real quick before we end the video, and that is over here in our routes. So is authenticated right now, we have made this little method that will check whether, just client side, whether we think, or check if they're authenticated. And all we're doing right now is checking whether they have a token. And if they don't, then they're not authenticated. But someone mentioned a nice little addition we can make to this to make this even better. We could check if the token has expired. Now it's okay if our regular token expires because we can refresh it with our refresh token. But if our refresh token expires, then we know they're not authenticated. So when we decode the refresh token, we actually get the values in it, and one of the values in it is called EXP, and that gives us in seconds the date this expires. And what we can do is we can just do a little if statement, and we're going to say date.now. This gives us the date in milliseconds, so we have to divide by 1,000, and we're just going to say if it's greater than expired, then return false. So this means, so what we're checking here is we want to make sure if the current date is bigger than when this expires, so that means we have passed when we have this is expired, then we return false, they are not authenticated. So give that a save. And this should not, we shouldn't see any effect because I'm logged in. I have a good token because I'm able to say hey and see my messages here. So perfect. And oh, there's also one other thing I wanted to do. Notice our load more button pops up here even though there's no messages. So we're only checking whether our load more, so it's in our message container. So our button, so we're only checking if has more items, and we default that to true. But we should also know we don't have any more items if our initial messages is less than 35. So and messages is greater than 35. And we should say messages.length. And 35, again, that's matching up how much we're limiting. So here we know we didn't get 35 messages at least, so we know we're out. But in general, we got 35 messages, so we know we could possibly load more. Perfect. So that's it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching.